So I was thinking about some things this morning. You know, well, we've got a lot to think about, don't we? 5G, the electromagnetic microwave oven for the goy. And, I was also thinking 501c3 churches, the advent of that. Scofield Bible was written in 1917. Well, you know, Scofield, how that story goes is there was a guy named Scofield, and I'm not going to go far into the story of him, but if you do your research on him, you'll see that, he was a twice married preacher who gained prominence, and he was an ex-lawyer, broke as a joke, and then started writing on subjects, preaching on certain subjects, and it had to do with the tribe. Inexplicably, he was backed with a lot of money and was able to write his version of the notes in the Bible and rewrite a little bit of history there inside the Bible to propagate Zionism is exactly what they did. Okay. And then the advent of the 501c3, so you could have a tax-exempt organization. And what you've got is a recipe for the Zionists to come in, subvert the Christians, and give credence to the state of Israel and to Jews being the chosen people of God, which the Bible states clearly that Zion is the people of God, the church. It's not any place. They pervert the Bible to their ends. I mean, it's very obvious to anyone that's really studied it. But I bring all these things in so I can tell you, you got to start seeing that there's a plan afoot. A lot of people know that there is, but they don't know exactly what it is. They can't draw all the conclusions to all this. I mean, of course, it's a web of lies and deceit that goes back centuries. And, I've been studying on it for many decades. So, it's always going to be the condensed version with me because there's no possible way that I could explain everything that I know in one video or 100. But it doesn't really matter. You look into these things. What happens when you get a 501c3 church is there's a guidelines that they'll send to you, and you'll have to sign off in order to get the tax exempt status, to steal the tithe from the people. Got to do that, because God needs money. Jesus, he needs the Savior, Christ, he needs money. I hate to be a blasphemer, even to say that. It's so ridiculous. But regardless, they need the money. And so these guidelines that they send out tell you that you cannot speak on certain things. And you can look into that. But the shepherds aren't tending to their flock. I mean, if they're not telling their flock about 5G and Zionism and the state of Israel and their leaders, quote unquote, if they're not preaching on these things, then they're satanic as far as I'm concerned. It's synagogue of Satan, fake Jews. I mean, there's no Semitism in any of those people over there. It's ridiculous. Look into that. But, just a quick video, just a Sunday morning conversation. My head is all over the place, bored. I went to work this morning, Sunday morning, just for a couple hours so I could have something to do. House is clean. You can do the white glove test on it. Everything's maintained in my home, my shop. But, I always think of these things. I'm thinking on God 24/7, even in my sleep. I rarely sleep, but because I'm thinking about God almost all the time. I mean, I'm obsessed with it. and what that means and the implications of our existence. And deep thought on things of that nature, mulling over all the things I've studied in my life. Just giving videos out, really to hash these things out verbally. And I'd like to give people the opportunity to listen to that because I think it's important. Not because I'm egotistical, but because I think a lot of people are having these thoughts now, and some people are new to them, and some people have been thinking about them for decades, like myself. And I think it's interesting to listen to other people's points of view, and I think it's interesting to speak on them, you know. But I see all these actors, and if you believe anything you see concerning politics, well, there's nothing I can do for you. This is a show for the goy. Big, huge, well-produced, sometimes, and a very well-funded by you and me, and our debt on our children and ourselves forever. And that's what it is. It's precisely what it is. You know, everybody knows that now. Not everybody, but people are waking up, and they have to. Eventually, you're going to have to come to terms with this. And you can hear my dogs going in and out of the rooms. They're milling around too. How many walks can you go on? How many, it's just crazy. But anyway, talking on the 501c3. My grandmother was an evangelist, and she had a little church in LA. And one of my first memories, being a human, being conscious, was waking up on a set of drums. Must have been about 3 or 4 years old. And next thing I knew, we were playing music, and I was playing those drums in the church. My grandma had put me up there on that and just let me do it. We lived there by the church, and I always had opportunity to go in and play those drums when I was a little child, baby actually. Dad was a drummer, guitar player. We play all the instruments in church. We learned. But, she's gone now. But we used to go into the biggest churches in LA. A lot of black churches. They get down to business when they do their musical service portion of the church, And I remember my grandmother preaching in there, just bringing the house down, man. Just people falling out in the spirit, and it was glorious. And that's what I grew up in, and as a child, a very young child, all my early youth. You're talking, years and years of it. And my grandmother, I bring it up because my grandmother would be the very last person to worry about, tax exemption or 501c3. There was no way. Believe me, she was not involved. There was nothing this woman wouldn't speak on. Bully pulpit, pounding the pulpit. They called her the Texas Tornado, man. And in her later years, she would go to penitentiaries and preach to the convicts, and she was just fearless, man. And my parents knew enough to let me be around my grandmother and my grandparents in my early very formative years, and go on trips with her up and down the coast of Cali, and different churches and places we'd go, and things we'd see. She was fearless, man. She wasn't foolhardy. She knew people. But back in those days in the 70s, you could pick up hitchhikers, and the reason I say is because we pick up hitchhikers, and she'd talk to them about God, and talk to them about their travels. And she'd tell me everything after we'd let the people out. She'd tell me what her take on these people were. And, she taught me. She taught me how to read people and how to understand people and to, understand what they're saying and their meanings behind what they say, and how one thing can mean 50 different other things, and how to read that. My grandfather did the same thing. He taught me a lot. And he was a missionary in India. He was believe it or not, he was a Mason, and he was a second degree, and he went for his 33rd degree there, whatever, I guess. And inexplicably, he quit the Masons and moved to India. So later learned, he told me, he came back and he was 89 years old, 88, 89 years old, and I was a baby, and 3, 4 years old, and they put me with him too, They put me up on the third level of our house that we lived in Terre Haute, Indiana, and 826 3rd Avenue. They put me over there, and the house is gone now. Anyway, they put me up in that third floor with him, and he told me everything. For the last year of his life, he told me everything he could. He programmed me with all the knowledge that he had. I remember now, and I'm 46 now, I remember I'm starting to understand the things finally. I'd go through my life just knowing certain things and being triggered by certain phrases and words and scenes. I never understood what the hell was going on with me. And now that I'm older and I have some perspective on my life, I see that I was programmed by these old people. I was a conduit between the youth and the elders, and that's what I've always been. And my family and friends, they will tell you that. They know that. They know that I've been programmed and have a vast understanding of the elders and the old way of looking at things. Not this new world order way, but I'm well versed in that too. And they wanted me to learn about all that. And so I had been learning about these things literally all my life. And so it's very hard to put into video form. It's very hard to talk on it. So I just open up, and I'm just a conduit to you, is because there's no other way for me to do it. I can't read on it, and the books I have, I can't just open them up and start reading them to you. I can't just read my journals. I used to write journals when I was younger, and it was funny. I was going over one of them the other day. I had put in there just a simple little thing on, it was right after September 11th, this particular entry, and it said, why do you think they came out with the color-coded system? And many of you might remember that they had the green and the red and the different colors, for the different levels of awareness of the terrorists, just to scare the hell out of everybody. But I had that in there back then, and I had written it as to why they would do such a thing, and it's just all about the signs and symbols. Somebody wrote in my comments section, signs and symbols rule the world, and boy, that's so true. That's how they show each other what the game is, They don't all talk to each other all the time. They're not in constant, physical communication with each other, but they are in charge of all the media and the outlets and Twitters and your YouTubes and that's how they talk to each other. They put their codes on, put their different codes that they know, and they put it out there for each other. Hey, this is the agenda. This is how we're going to do it. Man, I tell you, and it's all verbal. Anything you're reading or hearing about it or writing about it or no. The Zionist and the Jewish faith, it's all verbal. They give you your Talmud, but the Talmud is a joke. That's not what they follow. If you really look into what the Jews think, it's all verbal, oral tradition. And there's several oral traditions, but the one that is most prevalent is the actual teachings that the Jews have for each other, and that's all verbal. You can't write that down. You can't write down about the Goyim, and you can't. Listen, if you write that down, the Goyim will know. Oy vey, the Goyim will know. And so, there's been enough sellouts to the Jewish faith and enough people that are, looked into it and understand. People like my grandfather that explained to me these things when I was a young child. And me looking into it over the years, I got a pretty good grasp on what we're looking at here. over the next few months. I'm hoping to be able to verbalize that. Really going through it right now. I mean, all of this was known to me for decades. These kinds of things, the rollout of all these new technologies, and the way that they would, shuffle the goyim from place to place through their fake wars and their viruses and their sicknesses and their immigration. Just move the cattle around the board, man. For their own ends, Make them believe all the lies and the stories that they tell. It's staggering to me. What I know staggers me. And I know a lot of you guys are really intelligent. I mean, I read your comments and I watch your videos, and it's just unbelievable. I love this. I thought to do this and get together with my own kind. Everybody who's involved in seeking the truth, exposing these satanic pedophiles. I don't care what anyone says. It's real. They do that. There might be a lot of hoaxes and controlled opposition showing you things and trying to get you to go down the wrong paths. But believe when I tell you that they are addicted. Okay, I got one for you, and then I'll end it, because I don't like this ranting style. I just wanted to get this out, okay? Just a thought. You guys know me now. All right, my brother was working for a electric company, and he was on foot years back. He was on foot and going reading meters. He was reading the meters that are back behind businesses, people's yards and whatnot. Before smart meters, the advent of that smart technology. But anyway, he texted me a picture of the meter out behind the Mason Hall here in town. Big Mason Hall, Albert Pike's Mason Hall, right here in Arkansas. People have no idea. So, anyway, he texted me that. 5 seconds later, he texted me another one. It was at the back of a funeral home. The funeral home that, the Mason Hall, and it's shared. The Mason Hall and the funeral home share an alley. And guess what, people? And this is from a guy who worked for an electric company. They also share their electric. Now, why would they share their electric? And another thing, why would the Mason Hall have a RTO? A big stack burner. People don't know. An RTO, you've got your chimney stack and you're burning something and you don't want the ash to fall out and all that. So you put big burners on the stack and you burn the ash. Now, why do you need to do that in a Mason Hall? What are you doing inside those Mason Halls that requires you to burn something so thoroughly that there's not even any ash left? Okay? Think about that. Think about what I'm telling you. Think about what I have told you. I don't want to steer anyone wrong, and I know these are disjointed. I use that word a lot, and that's what my mind is right now during this. That's why I started making these videos, guys, being as honest as I can. The disjointedness in me currently is something that has not been going on. I've always been very, very even-keeled. But recently, over the last few months, personally, I've been feeling a lot of things more than usual, feeling. And that's not something that I don't like people. I'm all in my feelings. I'm all in my feelings. I hate people like that. That stay in that state all the time, No, let's be logical. Let's be rational. I understand. But feelings. And then I thought back on myself and I said, well, okay, how did you, recently I've said this. I said, how did you raise your children? You told them when they were babies, you said, 3, 4 years old, and they were aware, conscious. And I told them, I said, guys, whenever they made their first mistakes, when they became conscious, they were right from wrong is what I'm getting at here. Whenever that happened, I told them, I stood them in front of me, my beautiful little babies, and I said, okay, guys. I said, you feel that in your stomach, in the pit of your stomach? Whenever you've done wrong or you realize something's wrong. And they would nod at me. That's okay. And if you feel it in your chest, put my hand on their chest. It's okay that what you did was right, what you thought was okay, and that's God. That's you. That's God inside of you, letting you know that the way you're feeling right now is the proper way and the right way. And then if you feel that in the seat of your stomach, in the pit of your stomach, even lower, just be honest, way down deep, your core. If you know it's wrong, you know it's wrong, guys. That's what I tell my kids. You can feel that. You don't have to have anyone tell you that, and you don't have to have anyone explain that to you. And that's how I raise my children. And so I've been feeling that personally, and I have to come to terms whenever I feel those things. You know, I believe them, and I was taught them, and I knew them to be right and have all my life. But here I am feeling that pit in the pit of my stomach again. Just like before 9/11, just like before Oklahoma City bombing, just like before all those hoaxes that they pulled on us. I felt, I'm a conduit to something, and I'm trying to put that out with no ego involved, guys. You have no idea. You have no idea what I've seen, what I've gone through in my life, and I have none of what you've gone through. So whenever I read your comments, and I take those things into account, and I take into account that you guys have lived long lives and seen much, and if you're watching my videos, then I have to assume that you're thinking of things and looking at things kind of the way that I am. Strangely enough, there must be something that resonates in what I'm saying with you guys. Okay? So, you know, I apologize for the disjointed video today, but I was feeling this way and I wanted to get some input from some people. I watch my Dave videos and I get a lot from that. I watch preachers and listen to them, and, you know, I think back on my grandmother's sermons, I think back on my grandfather's words. I think of those things. And, you know, I've been thinking about it a lot recently. So, hey, guys, drop me a comment. Let me know how you feel, and I'll be watching for your uploads. Let's get it together, guys. We really need to, now more than ever, and I feel like we are. You know, people looked at me crazy when I made this. Started, and I've had this YouTube page since 2012 or 13, but I have another one that I've had since 2006, and there's no uploads on it. It's just my channel, another channel of mine. And, you know, I've been doing this for years, and I've been watching. I've had my ear to the street here, as it were, about what people are really looking into and what they see and what's been suppressed and what's been put out there, promoted. So over all these years, I think you can start to see that there's a legitimate agenda being pushed by a group of people. We know who they are. They have names and addresses. So, you know, that's what I had to come to you guys with today, and that's what I wanted to share with you. Another disjointed video from Jack. I appreciate the views, guys, and I appreciate all the input. I really do. I want to thank you guys for that. So, hey, you know, it's Sunday. I just wanted to let you guys have a little Sunday conversation with Jack. Let's get it together.